Okay, we're back with Will, and now I want to talk about Conferring with the Moon. I went through and I have a big collection of your music, but since I moved out from my place, I had it all in boxes and I couldn't find all of the albums, but I have them here with me. You see, some of them, and I have some more, but in the box. So, Conferring with the Moon. In this album, you have a, a, a piece that's dear to us Latin Americans, which is the Andean people, which is Lago de Montañas,
Ah,
mm, Mountain Lake, that you played with Enrique Cruz.
yes. Kike,
Um,
Kike. Yeah.
Kike, yeah. How did you connect to, if you remember, because so far long ways ago, how do you connect to the Lake Mountain spirit to bring us such a delightful piece with Enrique Cruz? Did you play the charango, didn't you?
Yes,
Yeah.
I still have the charango. I haven't used it enough of late, but I actually had it in my hand, I think last week. And it's a sound that once I reacquainted myself with it, I thought, yeah, well, I mean, why have I not gone back to that? So yeah, I may be doing some of that too. That's funny you should bring that up because it's something that had been absent in my life for so long. But there, it sits over here, right? And then, well, why don't you pick it up? It's not just there for decoration, but I have been picking it up.
Oh yeah, charango has a very special sound to it. It's like for Andean people that we listen to it a lot. It's very heartfelt. It's really a beautiful instrument.
Yeah,
Um,
I'd lost track of it, but
mm,
it's on a stand. Actually, it's on a stand in the studio right now because that gets me closer to actually recording it. But yeah, what incredible sound.
mhm. So you have a very interesting way of naming your songs. I mean, there's one that's climbing in geometry, but there is from one of your latest albums, there's a song that it's like very long name. I will remember which one it is, but like climbing in geometry. What is climbing in geometry all about? Because this is another minimalist song in your guitar that had also amazing artists like Charlie Bisharat on the violin and Irish Stein on the piano and Michael Mandring on bass. Um, this is another delicacy to the ears. I mean, is so. How do you go about naming your songs? I mean, climbing in geometry. That's what an amazing
Um,
idea.
Not that I would say that the Sierra Nevada mountains in California saved my life. After my mother's suicide, I was taken up to the high Sierras with a man who was in the English department with my father. As a matter of fact, only yesterday I was looking at, or the day before maybe, looking at the history of Bill Wyman. But Bill Wyman ran these trips into the high Sierra in the summer. And we actually, those who went on that actually worked as slaves, but lovely work, working on trail maintenance and building in the high country of Yosemite and Stanislaus National Forest. So here we are, young kids. There's no electricity anywhere. You go to bed when it's dark, and um, but that was after, and this is after my mother's suicide. I
You
mean, I
you were
was,
12, right? You were very young when she died.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
and unfortunately, I found her hanging in the shower. So that's something that I had to
process.
exercise. Um, the impending death of the Virgin Spirit is that. I mean, that was the end of my childhood. That was the end of, and I'm gonna cry now. Uh, it was the end of my innocence, my childhood innocence. You find your mother hanging in the shower.
So
Uh,
tough.
yeah, yeah, the impending death of the Virgin Spirit, the night before my life completely changed. Um,
Wow.
I, I've seen I've seen some hard things in my life, and we all do. Come on, let's be honest. Maybe not as bad as a mother hanging herself, but we all suffer, we all hurt, we all have loss. But I have managed to channel that into something that now goes through my heart, as opposed to my brain. I need to express what the heart is feeling and do the best I can.
Well, thank you for sharing, because that's something so deep and intimate. And I was, when I was listening to your first albums, and I was feeling a melancholic
Yeah.
sound to it, and I imagine it had to do with all that you had lived, and so it's doing music. It's so healing anyway, because you were able to process, and you are
Yeah.
this far. You are here, and you're this far, and doing amazing things still.
I would argue that whether my music was heard by, a group of people outside of me, but just itself was arguably enough. I mean, I got to express, I got to deal with, the feelings. I haven't talked about this really in an interview, but there's some other really dark stuff. I have a well of sadness and hurt that I can draw upon. And clearly, I think you know that from this. And I'm not a person who's always sad, and yet that's always in me. And there are times where it just needs to be said, and I say it in music. And that's why my music, I mean, there are some pieces of mine that are fun and energetic, but there's a melancholy in what I do, and it's inevitably going to be that, simply because, it is deeply, in me.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing, and that you're able to talk about it too, not only go through your guitar, but able to express it
Well,
as well. So
yeah, but I've had decades upon decades of therapy
yeah.
with mostly really, really talented women.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Tracy and Sally, and there are a number of people who, uh,
Have helped on the way.
yeah, and I've worked with male therapists as well, but it doesn't work. For some reason it has to be a woman. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
why, but
Mm-hmm.
I would argue, I don't think I would have jumped off a building or anything, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't know that I would have been the productive person I am without their help.
Oh, that's
Tremendous
great.
amount of help. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. So let's talk about, like, this. You have a song that's called "The Prospect of Darrow's Barn and the Blossoms of an Apple Spring that are on the imaginary road." I think those are some songs. Like what I was saying. You have an amazing creativity to name the songs, because when
Oops, we
when
froze again.
what I was saying is, like, you have such a creative way of putting names to the songs, and since they are like mostly we have the Voices album, but most of your albums are instrumental. How do the names come about? Because if you are writing some song, then you can choose from the idea of the song, but in instrumental music, yeah, I mean, such the prospect of Darrow's Barn, and it's
All I can do is borrow from what I am doing at the time that something is written. I don't pretend that I sat down to try to write a song about Darrow's Barn.
Mhm.
I made a piece of music, but I had been working for the Darrows at their huge orchard. I mean, they have apple orchards that go for miles and miles and miles. So I tried to look at what I was doing at the time that I write something, and try to come up with something that I think is applicable to the sound of that.
Mhm.
It's guesswork in most cases, although there are times where I very purposefully try to express something. Generally speaking, however, I this music comes through me, and then I try to figure out where the hell it came from.
Mhm.
Um, but there are times where I've written something that was very purposefully because of a thought or feeling I had.
Oh, great. I was just so, contemplating the titles of your songs and saying, wow, wow, such creativity to name songs, It's like, uh, it was beautiful. So thanks for sharing that. Now we're
Yeah,
going
how about the second great torsion bar overland of West Townsend, Vermont, Jose Pepsi attending a horror story of mental fatigue and intoxication, where a maddened Pepsi salesman is coerced in the abandonment of all ethical standards and a uh, oh gosh something truck uh, oh God, I lost the part of it, but that actually was a time I found a second home at Windham Hill Farm, which was originally a Vermont apple farm, but it had been bought by Hugh and Mary Folsom, and they had created Windham Hill Inn just up the road from here, about 40 minutes. And really, it had become a home for me. After my mother's death, my father remarried. I was sent to school on the East Coast, and I was dating a girl named Kate, who I stay in touch with, by the way, who said to me, "I think I know where we can get a room for the weekend together." Now, come on, we're what, 16? And this is like, okay, that's 17 Christmases right there. A girl says she knows where we can get a room for the weekend. And we ended up meeting down in Brattleboro, Vermont, and hitchhiking up the road to Windham Hill Farm, Windham Hill Inn. And we just walked in the door, and Hugh looked at Kate, who's just the daughter of some her parents that would stay there. And she said, "Well, Kate, what are you doing here?" And she said, "Well, me and my boyfriend thought maybe we could just come and stay for the weekend or something." And he said, "Yeah, you can have the North Room." And I'm going, I'm 16 and I was just given a room with a girl. This is really a place I like. and but Hugh and Mary, in some respects, really became my family. I mean, my father had remarried, and I didn't have any. I barely had any involvement in that. But I found a home at Windham Hill, which is why my business card read Windham Hill Builders Records. Everything that was important to me was Windham Hill, and it's actually just a place that's up the road about 30 minutes.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. How
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Okay, so let's listen now. From your 1986 album, Conferring with the Moon, we're going to listen to Lago de Montañas and Climbing in Geometry. And from 1988, Imagery Roads will have the Prospect of Darrow's Barn, and Brother A Teaches Seven with Charlie
Uh,
Bisharat and Michael Manring.
that's Alaudin Matthew, who is brother A in that. Um, I was playing I was playing a guitar piece for him, and he kept slapping my hand, and he would slap my hand again, then he'd slap my hand again, and he just said, uh, "See, you don't have to do 4/4. If you just stop there, you've got a three." And it's like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. But that's brother A teaches seven, and because I was going to a 7 chord pattern and not an 8 chord pattern.
Oh, amazing. I was wondering, it's like Brother A. I had to reread several times because I was putting Brother 7 teaches A, or then, it crossed. No, it's Brother A teaches 7. I was wondering what it was all about, but thank you.
Yeah,
That's,
it's Alaudin Matthew, a wonderful piano player. Yeah.
oh, great. Okay, well, listen to the music and we'll be back with Will.